Hello there. Today we're going to look at the process of hand carding wool. But before we actually start looking at how we do it, I think it's important that we look at and discuss why we would do it. So let me finish this one very quickly. And we'll get on to it. So hand carding is a woolen preparation of our fibres ready to spin a woolen spin, which is effectively a long draw spin. Now that produces a soft, rounded type, airy, lofty type of yarn. That's absolutely perfect for your lovely winter woolies. It just feels cosy and soft and lovely. However, because of the way that we actually spin this, the nature of the technique and the type of fibres that we choose to use generally means that we don't need to incorporate much twist to maintain the structure and integrity of the yarn. Therefore, it is prone to abrasion, which can therefore lead to pilling of your garment if you choose to wear it too often or a little bit heavy-handed with it. So do bear that in mind when you're considering which method of preparation might be suitable for your particular project. Just quickly by comparison, if we have a look at this little skein, which was prepared in a worsted method and spun in a worsted, so therefore that's a longer fibre which has been combed and spun in a short forward draw, which compresses those fibres more, excludes the air, and makes a more robust type of yarn, which can take a little bit more wear and tear. So that helps us very briefly to decide which method we would choose. So therefore, having chosen the woolen method, let's have a look quickly at the types of fibres that we would use. I have here just some short locks from a border Leicester. It was an absolutely beautiful fleece. Some sections of the fleece were longer stapled than others, and I've chosen some of the shorter pieces, which are about 4 inches, which is the cusp really. So we're looking for a woolen preparation for the fibres to be no more than 4 inches at the longest really. That length fits nice and comfortably onto our carders. You can see from the fibres that it's soft and airy, it's already looking bouncy and squishy. That's squishy, one of my favourite words. You can see it's actually already got the air retained between those fibres. The other thing that we can see is that the fibre has quite a lot of crimp as well, and the crimp being the little zigzag pattern that runs down the length of the staple. The crimp indicates that basically the more crimp, the finer the fibre. However, it also creates little pockets where the air can sit as well. So all of this is telling me that this wants to be woolen prepared and spun to create a nice, soft, rounded, airy yarn. So that's a brief look at the fibres. So let's have a look at the equipment that we're going to use as well. So I have here my favourite pair of hand carders, which you can see that this has a curved back. Now this sits really comfortably on my knee. I rather like this, and you have more of a rocking action when you're actually carding your wool. The alternative is the flat backed. You can put them two together, you can really see the difference in the shape. The technique is no different, it's more a case of just keeping the two completely parallel as you actually card. And it really comes down to personal preference really. So moving on to what we actually do with our fibres. Now then, the wool here has actually been lightly washed already. I like to retain as much of the structure of fibre as I can really when I prepare it. I think I just like to keep it a little bit more sheepy for as long as possible. So you can see we have a very definite cut end, that's the butt end, and we have very definite tips. Now I've separated out these locks individually for a reason. I like to place each lock onto the carder, so secure it with my fingers here, leaving a gap at the top about a finger's width as well, and then just secure it down over my knee so it's off the end of the carders. Just open those tips out a little bit as you go. Now, the reason that I keep the lock structure is because it helps to keep me a little bit more organised as I'm preparing my wool and as I'm carding it. So you can see the tips here are still actually quite tight, and it's those tips that actually hold more of the dirt and grease depending on how you've washed your fibres. But generally, obviously, that's the outside of the sheep, so that is always tighter when it's on the animal and stops the elements, the rain, the wind, the snow, and any of the bits and pieces from actually getting down inside the remainder of the fleece. So all the dirt is basically held out at the outside. So if we start just by lightly carding those tips, so you can see that's already started to open up, and the little bits fall out nicely on your apron. I mean, you can see my apron is getting a little bit covered in little bits and pieces. Always obviously choose a fleece that is as good a quality as you can. Don't be tempted to use a poorer quality fleece for practicing on. I don't go with that idea at all. I believe that the better the fleece to start with, the more you're going to enjoy it, and therefore the more you're going to want to do it, the more you'll enjoy the whole process, and the more you're going to spin. So having carded just that little bit on the end, just move your carders up so that you card with the whole width of the top carder. Now, as you can see, I'm actually just stroking that really lightly. I mean, I'm hardly holding it there. If you press too hard, the teeth will actually just grip together. And you can see my knuckles, they're really white. I can't actually pull that, so there's no point trying. Just be gentle with my sheep. Okay. And also, as I take that pass, make sure you take that carder right away so that you break the link of the staple there. Otherwise, if you don't separate it, you'll fold this back on itself, and you'll end up with a big ridge, and you can see already that's making a bit of a mess there. What we're aiming for is for all the debris to be removed, and for all the fibres to be nicely aligned so they haven't got any lumps and bumps in there, because ultimately our spinning and our finished project is only going to be as good as our preparation. I mean, that's an old adage, isn't it? But it really is true. I used to do this a little bit haphazard, I have to say. I now give it much more attention because I think you actually will achieve much better results. So if I just do this one very quickly to show you the technique, and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to show you it step by step in slow motion so that you can follow or keep watching back over and over, so that you can achieve the same results, which I know you will. There are several ways, obviously, of doing anything really, but don't worry about it. I'm going to show you my technique, and I hope you're going to find that easy to understand, easy to do, and therefore enjoyable. But equally, you might just find another way that suits you, depending on how you want to do things, depending on the fibres that you're working with. But it doesn't matter. Just concentrate on making sure that those fibres are aligned, that you haven't got any lumps and bumps in there. Okay, and then your spinning will be far more effective. Okay. So this is the rolag that we create from our hand carding, which we would then long draw spin with. You actually stretch as you're spinning the whole length of that, and it just opens out like candy floss. It's just beautiful. It's lovely. I have to say it's my favourite way of spinning. So let's do that again in slow motion. So Also consider that when you come to do this for real, you'll be potentially sitting for quite a long time actually creating lots of rolags ready to spin. So we aim generally for consistency in our spinning and therefore in our yarn. Now that's achieved by consistency in every part of the process really. So the more rolags that you consistently create means that you can keep the rhythm of your spinning going for much longer because you haven't got to keep stopping and starting. And that means that your spinning therefore will be more consistent because you can keep it going over a longer period of time. Having said that, make sure that you find somewhere comfortable to sit. Relax your shoulders, make sure you're nice and cozy, and do keep your carders down. We don't want them up here. It's going to put way too much strain on your shoulders and it'll be very uncomfortable, and you can't keep that going for very long. But once it's down on your knee and you're just working comfortably here, it's actually a really pleasant experience, and you can keep doing that all day. Okay, so a little bit of health and safety. So let's do this again. So if I just take each of my little locks, I'll just start by just opening up those tips a little bit there, just to help it on its way, and attach the lock about a finger's width down and secure over the end of the teeth. And it really is a case of less is more as well. You don't want to overload the carders, you just want enough to cover the teeth so that you can easily card through the whole area. Now I have in here, which I don't know if you can see, which I'm going to pull out, a little knobbly bit, as I keep saying knobbly bits. This is actually a little second cut. Now it's really crucial that at every stage of your preparation, as I said, you remove all the bits that you don't want. Second cut are these little knobbly bits that are created when the shearer goes back over the sheep to tidy it up, really, just to remove any little bits that he's missed in such a fast process. And those little bits actually get stuck in the top of the fleece, which is the underside of the fleece, which should be removed whenever you find them, because obviously that's going to create a little lump in your spinning and stop your process. You can always save lots and lots of those if you've got them and dye them. They make quite useful little additions. But also I've got tiny little bits of something in here, don't know what it is, but again it needs to come out. So there we are. So this is the carder loaded with, I may have put a little bit more on there really, but I think that's actually enough to show you the process. Hold the carder with, so this is your stationary carder, whichever hand you're using, this is your stationary carder. Hold it with your hand turned up and it flat on your knee, and you'll find that much more comfortable to work with. Your working carder, again, just hold very lightly. You don't need to press hard here at all. So just very lightly start with those tips, open those tips up, and then work up. Just stroking those fibres, just checking as you go for any lumps, any bits that are embedded. And again, if you press too hard, you will actually compress the fibres down between the teeth, and then it's it can be very difficult to remove that, and actually spoils the effect that you're looking for as well. So just very, very gently. Okay, so first pass, turn over your working carder, lift up your stationary carder, and you can see the wafty ends. Just place those at the top of the teeth of your working carder. Push this one, your stationary carder, down, but at the same time lift up your working carder. Now all of the wool is now on this side, and we're going to just turn that over and start again. Got a little bit of a thick area just here, so I'm just going to try and open that out a little bit more. That's fine. Now this time going to turn this one over and place those ends at the top of the carder, and this time push your working carder down and lift up your stationary carder. Your wool is now on this side. Turn over, card again, and by this time it should be looking pretty gorgeous. It's amazing just how it actually transforms as you start working with it. I love it. And again, turn this one over, lift your stationary carder up, transfer down and up at the same time, but this time we're going to go down to put the ends back on here and lift up again. Let me show you that again. So just down and up. So what we have now is the flat fibres just sitting on the top of the carder. So just make sure that it's sitting on the width of that carder so we can keep it a little bit organised. And now just using the edge of these teeth, so the back of the teeth where it's not sharp, hold the wool in place and just push the ends forward so that it starts to roll along the top of the teeth. Just hold it as you go. And I always say this in every class, it always reminds me of pushing a snow plough through the snow. So just keep it nice and flat. Keep your fingers on the wool here to keep it organised. Keep pushing and rolling it as you go until you get to the end. Then you're going to just lift it up, bring it back and give it another roll. Oops. There we go. And there is your rolag, all ready to spin. Okay. There, so I hope you enjoyed that. The process, as I say, isn't particularly complicated. It's really rewarding, and I hope you found that helpful. Obviously, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to know if you have just tried that for the first time, or whether you have been spinning for a long time but wanted to try a different way, whatever. And also, if you have any problems along the way, please ask. I don't want anybody to just sit at home and worry. It's only wool. I can remember when I learnt to spin, oh gosh, I loved my day, but when I went home to do it on my own, it was quite frustrating until I went back and asked for more help. And that's what I'm here for. So if you manage your carding and you enjoy your carding, you will spin, and that's why we're here, isn't it? So thanks for watching, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.